I first noticed him in the glass of the cafe window. It was early evening, that in-between time when the sky loses its color but the streetlights haven't fully warmed up yet. I sat by the window, absent-mindedly stirring a half-empty cup of coffee, watching the world pass by. The street was familiar: joggers, late workers, couples walking too close. Nothing out of place. Until I saw the man. Not on the street, but in the reflection. He stood directly behind me, just over my shoulder. Still. Silent. Too close. My breath hitched. My hands went cold. The cafe was nearly empty. And I hadn't heard anyone approach. I turned sharply. Nothing. Just the quiet hum of the espresso machine, a barista scrolling through her phone, an elderly couple near the counter. I exhaled. Half laughing at myself. Too much caffeine, not enough sleep. But when I looked back at the window, he was still there. Same spot. Same stillness. Not a shadow, not a trick of the light. A man. Dressed in black, his head slightly tilted, like he was studying me. His face was wrong, not blurry, not distorted, just unfinished. Like a photograph that hadn't developed all the way. A sharp clang from the counter made me jump. The barista had dropped a spoon. When I looked back. Gone. I pushed my coffee away, my appetite gone. I paid quickly, fumbling with the bills. And stepped outside. The street felt colder than it should have. I glanced at every reflective surface, windows, car mirrors, even my phone screen. Nothing. Just my own face, pale and uneasy. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe I was just exhausted. But as I walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something, somewhere, was still watching. And waiting. I tried to forget about it. I told myself it was nothing, just a trick of the mind, the way reflections can distort, how the brain fills in gaps. Stress, fatigue, caffeine withdrawal. Logical explanations. But logic didn't explain why I hesitated before checking my reflection the next morning. Standing in my bathroom, toothbrush halfway to my mouth, I caught myself staring at the mirror. Not at my own face, but behind me. At nothing. At the empty space where no one stood. I exhaled and shook my head. Ridiculous. Still. The memory of the man in the cafe glass stuck to me like something oily and sour. I kept expecting him to reappear. Every time I passed a window, I found myself glancing sideways, quick and guilty. Nothing. By midweek, I had almost convinced myself it had been a one-time hallucination. Then I saw him again. It was in the elevator at work. Late evening. I had stayed too long. Distracted by emails and unfinished reports. By the time I packed up, the office was nearly deserted. The elevator doors slid shut with a soft chime. I tapped my phone absent-mindedly, watching the floor numbers descend. Then I glanced up at the mirrored panel. He was there. Standing in the back corner of the elevator. Close enough that I should have felt him. Close enough that I should have heard him step inside. I went ice cold. My breath stilled in my throat. This time, I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Instead, I kept my eyes locked on the reflection. He was clearer now, his form sharper, more defined. But his face was still wrong. Not blurred. Not distorted. Just, incomplete. His features were there, but not quite. Like someone had started painting his face and stopped halfway through. Empty spaces where details should be. The elevator dinged. I nearly bolted out the doors. When I turned back, he was gone. I stumbled into the lobby, heart hammering. The security guard gave me a bored glance from behind his desk. I opened my mouth to say something, then stopped. What would I even say? I'm seeing things in reflections. I think I'm being followed by something that isn't real. I forced my legs to move. Out into the street. Away from the building. Away from the mirrored walls. But as I walked, I made a mistake. I glanced at the darkened shop windows lining the street. And there, in the glass, he walked behind me. Not watching this time. Following. I didn't turn around. I didn't run. I just walked. And prayed that when I reached my front door, I wouldn't see him standing behind me in the reflection of the glass. I stopped looking at reflections. At first. It was easy. I avoided mirrors, walked with my eyes low, kept my phone screen dark. I convinced myself it was a coping mechanism, a temporary measure until my nerves settled. Ignore it. And it will go away. But the world is full of reflective surfaces. Glass doors. Rain-wet pavement. The sheen of a turned-off television. Each one threatened to betray me. It didn't matter if I looked or not. I could feel him there. Closer now. The weight of unseen eyes pressing on my back. A phantom presence hovering just outside my line of sight. At work. I stopped taking the elevator. I kept my head down in the lobby, focused on the scuffed tile floor, avoiding the glinting panels of glass. At home, I covered my bathroom mirror with a towel. Then the hallway mirror. Then the dark, empty TV screen. Every night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening. I told myself I was imagining it. That the near silent shifts in the air were just the house settling, my own breath echoing in the room. But then came the night I felt him. The pressure on the bed. A shift in the mattress. A subtle, deliberate weight sinking down near my feet. I went completely still. Not breathing. Not moving. My body screamed at me to turn, to look, but I didn't. Some instinct, something ancient and primal, told me, if you look, he will be real. So I stayed frozen. Eyes open. Muscles locked. And eventually, the weight lifted. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I packed a bag. I needed space. Fresh air. Distance. I told my boss I was taking a few days off. Then I drove, out of the city, out to the countryside, where the roads narrowed and the fields stretched open. Somewhere without buildings. Without glass. I rented a small cabin by a lake. No mirrors. No screens. Just wood and water. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. That first night, I sat by the lake. Watching the dark water ripple under the wind. The air was crisp, clean, untouched by the weight I had been carrying. I told myself I was safe here. Then I stood, stretched, and froze. Because in the water, in the shifting black surface, he was standing behind me. I didn't turn. I couldn't. The reflection moved. Closer. A ripple broke across the lake, warping his shape. I turned then, too late. There was no one behind me. Only the wind. The empty dock. The distant hoot of an owl. I backed away from the water, pulse hammering. My cabin was only a short walk away. But the path suddenly felt too long, too dark. And in the silence, I realized something that turned my stomach to ice. The reflections had stopped waiting for me to look. Now. They were watching me on their own. And the man. He was getting closer. The cabin was supposed to be a refuge. A place without mirrors, without glass. I had chosen it carefully, no television. No polished surfaces, just rough wooden walls and a lake that stretched black and endless under the sky. I thought I had left him behind. I was wrong. That first night, I barely slept. Every creak of the old wood, every whisper of wind against the windows made my nerves stand on edge. But morning came, and nothing had happened. By the second night, I had almost convinced myself that I was safe. Then I saw the reflection where there shouldn't have been one. It was in the window. Not the glass, the wood. I was sitting at the small kitchen table. A cup of tea cooling in my hands, staring at nothing. The only light came from the dim glow of the lantern beside me. That's when I noticed it. A faint, almost imperceptible sheen on the wooden wall opposite me. A trick of the light, I thought at first. But the more I stared, the more certain I became, the wood was reflecting. And in that reflection, something moved. Not a clear image. Just a presence. A smudge of darkness that shifted, like someone standing just behind me. I didn't turn. My breath shallowed. My fingers tightened around the cup. The shape in the wood leaned forward. Not a shadow. A figure. Him. The unfinished face. The empty spaces where features should be. Watching me. I forced myself to move. A slow, careful rise from the chair, like I could pretend nothing was wrong. My pulse pounded in my throat as I stepped away from the table. The reflection didn't move. I backed toward the bedroom, never turning, never blinking. By the time I reached the doorframe, the figure was almost touching me. Then, as I stepped into the bedroom, it was gone. The wood was just wood again. No reflection. No sheen. Just an ordinary, empty cabin. But I wasn't alone. I could feel him now, in the walls, in the floor. In the dark corners where the lantern light didn't reach. He wasn't just in reflections anymore. He was inside the house. I didn't sleep. I lay on the narrow bed, every nerve stretched thin. Listening to the silence of the cabin. The lantern cast long shadows that shifted as the flame flickered. I thought about leaving. About getting in my car and driving away. Pushing the highway under my tires until I reached somewhere bright, somewhere crowded. But I knew something now. He wasn't tied to a place. He was tied to me. And he was getting closer. The cabin felt different in the morning, emptier, like something had been hollowed out overnight. The air was thick, heavy in a way I couldn't explain. When I stepped outside, I avoided the lake. I kept my eyes on the dirt, on the uneven wooden steps. I didn't want to see if he was still there, waiting in the water. I decided to leave that night. But as the day stretched on, something changed. The house itself felt wrong. It was subtle at first. The way the floorboards creaked before I stepped on them. The way my shadow didn't quite match my movements. Then, in the late afternoon, I opened the door to the small supply closet, and found something impossible. A mirror. I had checked this cabin before I came. There had been no mirrors, no glass. But now, one was here. A tall, freestanding mirror, tucked into the back of the closet like it had always been there. The air in the cabin shifted. I took a step back. The wooden floor groaned under my weight. The reflection didn't move. I stared at it. A cold, creeping sickness crawled up my spine. I lifted my hand, hesitant, shaking. The reflection didn't. It just stood there. Watching. Then, slowly, it took a step toward me. I slammed the door. My breath came hard, fast. My pulse roared in my ears. I pressed my palm against the wood. It felt solid. Real. I backed away. The cabin suddenly felt too small. The walls seemed closer, the ceiling lower. The air too still. I had to leave. I turned toward the door. And froze. The mirror was no longer in the closet. It was standing in the center of the room. And in its reflection, he was standing right behind me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I could see him in the mirror, standing directly behind me. But I refused to move. The cabin was silent, too silent, as if the world had paused, waiting for me to acknowledge him. My breath came shallow, my limbs locked in place. Then, he moved. Not in the mirror. Behind me. A slow shift of weight. The whisper of something brushing the floor. I felt it. The air grew dense, pressing against my skin. My ears rang with a sound I couldn't quite hear. Then, the whisper of a breath, not mine. Something cold, just inches from my neck. I squeezed my eyes shut. If you look, he will be real. A thought pressed into my mind, not my own. He is already real. The floor creaked. I forced my feet to move. One step. Then another. Slow, deliberate. The way you move when something is watching. Waiting. The mirror loomed in my peripheral vision. I kept my head down, avoiding my reflection. My fingers found the door handle. Turn. Pull. Go. The door wouldn't open. I yanked harder. The knob wouldn't budge. The air behind me shifted. My stomach twisted. Don't turn. Don't turn. Don't turn. I felt something touch my shoulder. The light flickered out. When I woke, the cabin was different. It was still the same place, but not. The walls felt farther away, the space stretched wrong. I couldn't tell if the room was too big or too small. The furniture seemed misplaced. A chair facing the wall. A table just slightly off-center. And the mirror, gone. The door was open now. Night pressed in from outside, the lake a black void. The wind whispered through the trees, but the cabin itself was silent. I stood on unsteady legs. My limbs felt wrong. Heavy. Delayed. I swallowed hard and stepped forward. The floor felt softer than it should have. The cabin door stood open, waiting. I didn't want to look outside. But I did. And I saw myself standing on the dock. A perfect copy. Same clothes. Same posture. Staring back at me. Then, slowly, it raised its hand. I didn't move. It waved. I stepped back. It took a step forward. The reflection wasn't in the glass anymore. It was outside. And it wanted to come in. I slammed the door. The wood felt thin beneath my hands, as if the cabin itself were growing fragile, dissolving into something hollow. My breath came too fast. Too loud in a heavy silence. I didn't move. Didn't turn. I listened. The wind outside had stopped. No trees rustling, no insects humming. Just silence. Then, footsteps on the porch. Slow. Measured. My breath hitched. My pulse throbbed in my throat. I didn't want to look. I knew what I would see. The handle rattled. A single, deliberate movement. I backed away. Pressing myself against the far wall. The door didn't open. But the cabin no longer felt like a place that could keep things out. A thought surfaced, unbidden. Maybe it isn't trying to get in. Maybe it's waiting for me to step outside. I glanced toward the window before I could stop myself. And I saw myself staring in. Not a reflection. Me. Standing on the porch, face pale and wrong. My own eyes, staring too intently. My own lips, slightly parted, as if about to speak. The other me tilted its head. My stomach twisted. It lifted a hand, slow, deliberate. It didn't knock. Didn't press against the glass. Just, waited. A pulse of something cold rippled through my chest. I was not supposed to see this. I turned away. Forced my eyes shut. Not real. Not real. Not real. When I opened them, the window was empty. For a single, terrible moment, I didn't know if that was better or worse. Then the whisper came. Not from outside. From inside the room. Let me in. I ran. Through the cabin, past the table, past the darkened mirror that wasn't supposed to be there. The front door was unlocked now, swinging open. The woods stretched out before me, too dark, too still. I didn't care. I bolted into the trees. Branches whipped against my skin, the ground uneven beneath my feet. The air was too thick, pressing against my lungs like wet cloth. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, so loud I almost didn't hear the second set of footsteps running behind me. Almost. I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. Because I already knew. It was me. Chasing. Getting closer. A flicker of movement in the corner of my eye. A shape, matching my stride. Then, ahead of me. I skidded to a stop. Because there, just beyond the tree line, I was waiting. Standing in the clearing. Calm. Still. Watching. Waiting for me to run right into myself. I choked on a breath. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. The other me smiled. Not wide. Not exaggerated. Just a small, knowing thing. I took a step back. The footsteps behind me stopped. I was trapped between myself. Then the other me spoke. And its voice was exactly like mine. You don't need to run anymore. I didn't answer. The other me stood in a clearing, waiting. The same face, the same body, the same clothes, but not me. Behind me. The second set of footsteps had stopped. I was surrounded. I could feel the air pressing in, thick with something I didn't understand. The woods should have been full of sound, wind in the trees. The rustling of night creatures, but there was only silence. Not emptiness. Something was holding its breath. The other me took a step forward. I stepped back. It smiled. Gentle. Patient. Like it was waiting for me to understand something. I swallowed hard. My mouth was dry. Who are you? I whispered. The smile didn't change. Then it said, I am the space you left behind. The words landed like ice down my spine. I shook my head. No. No, this isn't real. But my body knew the truth before my mind did. Somewhere, in the deepest part of me, I felt it, a gap. A hollow place where something had been removed, stripped away, forgotten. And it had filled that space. The trees around us seemed farther away now, stretching impossibly tall. The sky felt like a flat surface above me, painted too dark, too still. The other me tilted its head. Come back. The words weren't a demand. Not a request. An inevitability. Something was wrong with the air. The pressure shifted, bending the space around me. The forest no longer felt real, it felt like the memory of a forest. Like something trying to be a forest. And I was slipping into it. I took another step back. My foot landed wrong. Not on dirt. Not on leaves. On something smooth. Cold. I looked down. Glass. The ground beneath me was a mirror. The trees. The sky, the air, all reflected back at me, stretching downward into endless black. I wavered, my breath caught in my throat. The other me smiled wider. This was the trap. It hadn't been chasing me. It had been guiding me here. To the place where I would fall through. And then, it would step forward. Take my place. Become me. A slow, sinking terror filled my chest. I felt the glass shifting beneath my feet, soft as water, solid as ice. I had to move. Now. I turned to run. But the other me was already behind me. Standing in my space. Filling it perfectly. Close enough that I could feel its breath. "It's okay," it whispered. I gasped. And then the ground shattered. There was no impact. I didn't hit the ground. I just kept falling. Endless reflections spun around me, glass surfaces stretching, twisting, bending. I saw myself in every direction, but none of them were right. Some were too slow, lagging behind. Others blinked when I didn't. Some didn't have faces at all. The world around me collapsed into a tunnel of mirrors, stretching infinitely. I was falling towards something, or maybe away from it. And then I stopped. Not suddenly. Not with force. I just stopped falling. I was standing in a room that wasn't a room. A space made of glass, shifting and warping, bending outward into infinity. And across from me, standing on the same impossible floor, was me. Smiling. But something was wrong. This version of me fit. Perfectly. Effortlessly. Like it had always belonged. Like I was the one who was out of place. I pressed my hand to my chest, my breath coming shallow. Something was missing. A memory? A part of me? I didn't know. But I felt it. Like I had lost something so completely that I didn't even know what it was. The other me stepped forward. The reflections around us rippled, distorting. As if the very fabric of this place was adjusting to accommodate its presence. It raised a hand. And I knew, if it touched me, I would disappear. Not die. Cease. I stumbled back. The mirror beneath me trembled. I looked down. And saw nothing. No reflection. I wasn't there. I turned back to the other me. And it was the only one left. I wasn't here anymore. I felt it before I understood it. My reflection was gone. I was standing in front of something that looked like me, but I wasn't real anymore. The other me stepped forward. Confident. At ease. Like it belonged. Like it had always belonged. I tried to speak. My throat burned with silence. My lips moved, but no sound came out. The space around us shuddered. The glass warped. Shifting in and out of itself. I felt the edges of the world folding away, peeling apart like something fraying at the seams. And I understood. I was on the other side now. I had been slipping away for a long time, piece by piece, step by step. Every moment I had seen him, asterisk it, asterisk watching me, waiting, following, it hadn't been hunting. It had been replacing. Filling the space I left behind. And now, there was nothing left of me to hold on to. I had been unmade. The glass knows what belongs. And it knows what doesn't. The other me smiled. The reflections around it rippled and bent, shaping themselves around it, welcoming it. It turned away from me. Not as an enemy. Not as something malicious. Just as something that had already won. It walked forward, toward the surface. Toward my life. I lurched forward, grabbing for it. My fingers brushed its arm. For a moment, the glass held. Then, it passed through me. Like I wasn't there. Like I had never been. The other me reached the edge of the mirror world, where the reflections gave way to the real. Where I had once stood. It stepped through. And I stayed behind. I don't know how long I've been here. Time doesn't pass in this place. There is no sun. No night. No air. Just endless reflections. I walk, but I don't move. I breathe, but my lungs never fill. I speak, but no sound comes. I see it now, myself. Living. Moving. Taking my place with perfect ease. No one knows. No one sees the difference. Because there is no difference. It wears my face. Speaks with my voice. Thinks my thoughts. It is me. And I am only the thing that looks out from the glass. Watching. Waiting. For someone else to slip. For the glass to take another. Because now I understand. The reflection doesn't follow you. It waits for you to stop being real. And once you're gone, it steps forward. It lives. And you watch. Forever.